What is going on, guys? Welcome to In the Zone, where we dive deep into the world of baseball as far as skill acquisition, mental focus, and various training zones. I'm your host, Garrison Roy, and today we're going to go on a little bit of a rant. But as you know, those of you who've been listening to this podcast, we do have full-length interviews, mental minutes for those quick mental game hacks, and then also deep dive educational episodes as well. But I think I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it today as far as how things such as paralysis by analysis, it starts in your mindset, and why I always talk about being in the zone. Whenever you're, even as a coach or a player, you get a little too analytical on what you need to focus on, right? Like there's certain things that, yeah, you need to be aware and like actually track and have all these analytics and, quote unquote analytics for people who, might be a little old school. It's just data, right? It's stuff that you're collecting. It's the stats that you're getting. It's no different. We just have different ways to be able to correlate those and things now, in my opinion. But let's say for a case in a player situation where he's trying to perfect his swing mechanics or his throwing mechanics, whatever it might be. And, he's striving for perfection. But with that mindset of trying to be perfect, it's also slowing him down and not allowing him to, one, have that fluid movement and be able to enjoy the game, really, to be honest. But two, it's like, constantly videoing, constantly analyzing or asking people for their opinions and stuff, which, I'm all for. And of course, that's what I do for a lot of guys is give them feedback on some of their, deliveries and, just general mechanics. But if you're too analytical with that and you're so obsessed with it, it almost correlates to how you're going to move, right? You're going to be slow. You're going to be too methodical to where you don't even know how to flow and just be an athlete, right? And that's where a lot of things kind of get locked in, right? And, there is a time and place to kind of have an execution of certain maybe weight movements or certain drills where they need to be done a certain way to a degree, right? Like I think each one should have their own authenticity along with that. But it's tough to say that you can actually have the speed and the game like capabilities if you're focusing on things that you're doing too much, right? It's that intrinsic versus extrinsic focus, right? And that's essentially how you're going to perform your best in the game is when you're in your zone, when you're not consciously thinking about the movements that you make, right? Sometimes you just got to let the plan, you got to let the drill work or the problem to solve do its job. And again, I'm not saying that you should just mindlessly do things. It's not what I'm saying. But you should have some freedom, some creativity within that, and also just be an athlete. There is no perfect way of doing things, really. It's more of a failing forward, right? If you figure out how to not do something, great. Don't make the same mistake again. Or also, you're starting to piece some things together and you're like, oh, okay, cool. I felt this. This was probably a little too much, or this was, you need to learn how to explore that movement, explore different things. Everyone wants to know the right exact thing to do, right? And that's why I enjoy doing what I do, because I get to explore and try some of these, maybe trends or little things that are coming out, and I can call it out on its BS because I actually have some feel on what works and what doesn't work. And of course, obviously, if you're going to take some of these trends and throw them to every single kid that you work with, you're also in the wrong as a coach. I'm just putting that out there, right? And I think in essence, and this might be a whole nother rant in and of itself, but this is probably where a lot of old school guys bring up the multi-sport argument, right? Where you see these kids going to lessons all the time and they're, getting too robotic. They're getting overcoached because they're getting in this paralysis by analysis mindset. So they're not wrong, but they're also not 100% right in my point of view. It's like, hey, yeah, kids do need to play other sports. However, at some point they do need to specialize and learn how to be good at that. But what's happening is a lot of kids are just playing too many sports, right? And again, this is kind of two and two of a rant, totally different topic here, but I think it does kind of coincide. And hopefully you guys are understanding where I'm coming from with this, that, doing too much, focusing too much on what you're doing intrinsically and not focusing on the performance and being in the zone is where that disconnect is. So appreciate you guys listening in. If you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them, put it up on your stories, send it to a friend, and stay in the zone.